I deeply love Star Wars. Watching the original trilogy is one of the earliest family bonding moments I can remember, and I've grown up watching the prequel trilogy arrive, going to the cinema to see each movie come out, and loving the build-up to the eventual tragedy of not just Order 66 itself, but the creation of Darth Vader and the Galactic Empire.
So this is how liberty dies. With thunderous applause.
Some parts are certainly more painful than others to see right now, but that's not what we're here for today. I want to talk about the sequel trilogy and its story, something that definitely hasn't been done to death already by many a capable writer. My original plan was to cover Knights of the Old Republic, and sadly a combination of things in my life rendered that unfeasible at this time. Something for next year, perhaps. Maybe the remake will even be out by then. Anyways, if you've seen my previous videos on The Force Unleashed, then you know I'm familiar with pulling the lore out by its juicy bits and rearranging the guts into something more entertaining. I hope to do the same here, as I let slip in a few comments under that video that I have indeed written stories for this setting before, including a fully planned out rewrite of the sequel trilogy. I don't see myself getting the spare energy to finish writing it in full anytime soon, so what better way to share my love for Star Wars on this special date than seeing how far I can bend the lore until it breaks. Now this video will be split into 3 main sections, with the longest being for The Force Awakens, as it's the one I have the most detail on, but I will give basic outlines for what I would have done with episodes 8 and 9 as a follow-up, and hopefully I'm able to bring any skeptics around to accepting my flagrant indulgences. Let's get started, shall we? Hi, Editing Morgan here. There was going to be a title crawl here, but I figured that might be annoying for some of you with it scrolling for so long, and I also don't want to assume anyone's reading speed, so I'm just gonna put the entire text on screen and you can pause to read, and I'll do the same with the other title crawls. Alright? Okay, good. Now, we've set the stage with a few key differences here, haven't we? Luke is already dead, and the Resistance is now the Independent Freedom Coalition, the latter because it isn't just a splinter of the New Republic's military now, but a coalition of all the people currently under threat of the First Order's expansionist goals. The former because trying to drag old man Luke out of retirement to fix everything did not appeal to me, and we only needed one of the original 3 to serve as a mentor and link to the old guard, and she was right there. Yes, Carrie Fisher passing away impacted what they could do in the last film. I am purely approaching this from a character perspective. The title crawl would give way to stars as the camera pans down, showing a shining Ecumenopolis, planet Hosnian, capital world of the New Republic. Cutting to the interior of a shining tower on the surface, we see Leia looking out a window, waiting for her meeting with the Chancellor. She seems troubled, and her thoughts are interrupted by his secretary letting her know he's ready to see her. As she moves to step inside his office, a close shot at her waist shows the hint of a lightsaber hilt, safely tucked beneath her stylish silver coat. Chancellor Velcham, a stocky Tarsant, maintains only the barest veil of politeness, clearly irritated by her presence, and referring to her by the rank of general, putting an emphasis on the importance of peace and diplomacy, as opposed to the guerrilla warfare she's engaged in with the First Order. Leia doesn't seem surprised by his attitude. She's frustrated and tired, but unwavering in her conviction as she attempts to warn him that the First Order is a genuine threat to the Republic, and that they need to act instead of sitting back while the Outer Rim burns. He dismisses the troubles of the Outer Rim as bringing order to territories rife with lawless vagabonds, criminal gangs, and all manner of scoundrels taking advantage of the decent folk who happen to live there, snidely asking her, "How is your husband these days? Has he crawled out of his hole yet, or is he still hiding in shame with the rest of the gutter trash?" There is a brief moment where her jaw tenses, and a low camera shot would reveal her hand curling into a fist, but she forces a smile, remarking that she is not her so-called father, and that family can be an agonizing experience. All she wants is for other families to remain safe and whole from the machinations of the First Order. The Chancellor dashes her hopes when he reveals that the New Republic recently finalized a trade agreement with the First Order. As long as their attention stays on civilizing the Outer Rim, he sees no benefit in attacking them, especially when the New Republic has a pirating problem, and many of their best soldiers, agents, and civilians are continuously poached by the IFC. They can see the First Order as what it is, Chancellor. You can't tell me the similarity is lost on you. Their leader still carries the title of Emperor. That isn't harmless sentiment, it is purposeful. Valcham dismisses her concerns, arguing that the First Order are a different beast to the Empire. Where the Empire dismissed religion, the First Order is deeply spiritual. Where the Empire was staunchly xenophobic and human-centric, the First Order is a mix of many species from the unknown regions working together towards a common goal. Leia is not convinced by appearances, however. She trusts actions, and the actions of the First Order so far have been deeply troubling. She asks the Chancellor if he ever wondered why the pirate attacks chipping at the New Republic supply lines began around the same time the First Order emerged into the known galaxy. At this, the Chancellor tells her to get out unless she has proof of such wild insinuation. I have one of my best people working on that as we speak. I came here now to warn you that this is going to get worse. Because no matter what you believe, I do what I do for the sake of the Republic, not in spite of it. And she leaves. So we learn several things here. Leia and Han are currently not together, and while the narrative wouldn't reveal why until later, it's for the same reasons as The Force Awakens. Losing their son to the dark side and the fallout therein broke them. Leia has a lightsaber, and there's the implication that she almost did something to the Chancellor when he brought up Han with the express purpose of getting a rise out of her, only to hold herself in check because she's better than that. Pirates are keeping the New Republic distracted, and there's a heavy sense of classism in the way they view the territories of the Outer Rim, dismissing the First Order's clear, aggressive expansion as a civilizing effort. This definitely won't backfire horribly. Dramatic swipe transition to the familiar shape of a Star Destroyer, the design different than what we've seen before. There's a horizontal split giving the impression of a dragon's mouth. We're inside the Finalizer, as soldiers of all different species rush back and forth, preparing for a mission, wearing pristine white armor that is reminiscent of stormtroopers, but again, distinct and different. The lines are harsher, more pointed, the eyes narrowed. We see Finn talking to 3 other soldiers, helmets off, and they refer to each other with names rather than numbers, allowing us to put together that Finn's last name is Dorn. In this version of things, the First Order does still engage in some light child abduction, which they frame as salvation in the context of their shadowy religion, but the vast majority of their soldiers are not children ripped from families. The First Order is seen as a place of safety and order in the dangerous, chaotic territory of the unknown regions, which they call the frontier, and it came about through Imperial remnants accepting that they had to adapt or die, so they adapted by locking arms with other struggling species to form the First Order. As for the shadowy religion, that came about through Emperor Snoke Carlost, an enigmatic figure within the Empire who is unquestionably Sith. In fact, Sith are not an uncommon sight in the First Order, and they use Ilum as the location for the new academy, teaching the ways of the Sith by twisting them around this belief in a cosmic Dark Mother who watches over her children in the frontier and keeps them safe. The dogma of the First Order instills a belief that their forebears wanted to bring an end to the decadence and corruption of the Republic, and that Palpatine was betrayed by the weakness of his right hand Vader. They aren't simply invading the greater galaxy to spread their influence, but to avenge what was lost, in their minds, to greed and corruption. Now, the attack on Taunol goes roughly the same way, with the key difference being that Jakku isn't a desert planet, but a snowy alpine one. Finn still watches a squad mate die and gets marked, he still witnesses the massacre without pulling the trigger himself, and Poe is still taken hostage by Kylo Ren, only here, Kylo is referred to as Darth Ruin because Sith. Throughout Finn's quiet freakout, we'd get the sense that something else is going on with him, like he's hearing and feeling things outside of himself, and he mutters to stay in control, to pull it in, lending more weight to the moment Ruin stares at him after the massacre. Is this meant to heavily imply Finn is Force-sensitive? Yes. We'd also see hints of Finn's relationship with Captain Phasma here, as she is the one to march him to stand with the rest of the troopers, quietly reminding him to breathe and keep moving. Before they leave the planet, Finn retrieves the body of his dead squad mate himself. Naturally, interspersed in all of this, we'd still be introduced to Poe, but instead of a human man, he's talking to a Chiss defector from the First Order called Edron, who is handing him information that will prove their threat to the New Republic. He warns Poe against looking at any of it before he's off-world, because Sith interrogators will rip it out of his mind if he's caught. When Edrin is dragged out for his execution, Ruin makes a brief speech to the gathered troopers about terrorists, heathens, and how hard-fought their sense of peace and order is, ending with the call of one voice, to which the soldiers respond in unison, one purpose. Meanwhile, on the other side of the planet, we are introduced to Rey while she's meditating in a secluded cave, sunlight filtering down from above before she lunges into action, running through an obstacle course that's clearly seen a lot of use. She's shown using the Force to clear jumps and pull a swinging rope to her hand, but it's not perfect, and she struggles the longer and more intensely she taps into that power. When she reaches the end of the course, she's greeted by a droid called Aerox, who has a sleek, humanoid design, a matte black finish, and articulated plates on the face allowing him to express emotions. There are decorative little spurs on his chin, cheeks, and brow, and he has pointed ears in the right place, almost like he was designed to resemble a very specific species. Aerox informs Rey that she was unfortunately slower this time by 6 seconds, something that obviously frustrates her. Now, this isn't to counteract the criticism of Rey being a Mary Sue, because I truly detest that complaint whenever it comes up. Not a single goddamn person knows how to use it in a way that doesn't make me immediately cringe. No, this is more to do with setting up a revelation down the line. Imagine planning things out rather than flying by the seat of your pants. Anyway, leaving the cave, we'd see that Rey only needs to walk a short distance before she's home, living in an old smuggler den hidden in the sprawling pathways of the Atrava Maze, a cluster of plateaus that stand out from the vast white plains. Inside, she greets a female Cathar cooking food, calling her Mama even though her name is VIII, and they are obviously different species. VIII is tall and athletic with rusty fur, a short mane of black hair on her head, and dark blue eyes. She also has cybernetics, specifically replacing her left arm and leg, so she's already covered the tradition of losing a limb or two in a Star Wars film. She comes across reserved and observant, picking up immediately that something is bothering Rey and cautioning her not to push herself too hard when Rey tells her about the lost time, which only seems to frustrate her more as she remarks that normal training does almost nothing to help her improve now. Regardless, Rey quickly moves the conversation to other topics, asking if they're going back, to which VIII confirms they are. This would lead to a similar sequence when Rey is introduced to us in the film, showing her and VIII heading out on speeders to a wrecked Star Destroyer, exploring the depths, retrieving valuable pieces of tech from deep within the ship. Key details here would be right before they head out, Rey takes a moment to look up at a smaller ship hidden away in their home with sadness and regret. This ship has obviously seen use but remains sleek and elegant, and clearly hasn't been broken down for parts. Another thing is VIII using an orange lightsaber to cut open a security door within the Star Destroyer wreckage and levitating the cut section out of the way so she doesn't crush anything inside, showing that she too is force sensitive and in possession of a double-bladed saber that can disconnect into 2 separate hilts. She stows it in a leather holster on the back of her belt where it could be mistaken for some canisters or a light, purposefully obscuring that she has it. While they collect the pieces they can carry, Rey expresses frustration over forces like the Empire never staying dead, citing the ancient Sith Empire, what came with Palpatine, and finally the First Order, clearly hinting that she feels they should be doing something about it rather than hiding away on Jakku, but VIII shuts that conversation down and they leave. They hand in their pieces at Nima Outpost, where Onkar Plutt is just as condescending and cheap, but it's VIII who handles talking to him, while Rey watches the other scavengers cleaning up their finds, huddling around rickety shelters and heaters, her eyes lingering on a mother wiping the tears off her child's face. Instead of rations, scavengers are paid in barter chips that are only good for spending at the market outside Nima, which is more of a town than a trading post here, the affluent side safely walled off from everyone else. Back home, there's clearly tension, and Rey argues with her guardian about the endless repetition of their life on Jakku, to which VIII reminds her, "I understand it's difficult, but it's what your mother wanted. She wanted you safe, and you are safe here. Sulia will return eventually, and this will all become a distant memory, but for right now, we must stay put and keep our heads down." This is a rationale Rey has heard many times before, and she is tired of it, arguing against the idea of Sulia, her mother, ever coming back, that it's been 10 years and something could have happened to her, asking VIII what the point of having a code about honor and strength is if all they do is meekly accept things the way they are. VIII doesn't have an answer for her, and Rey leaves to sit outside, watching the sunset and the stars twinkle into existence. Her eyes catch the rising glow of a starship leaving the planet. Filling with tears, she quickly wipes away when she hears the peal of familiar beeps and whistles. As in the movie, Rey meets BB-8 getting harassed by Tito and rescues him, having the same "where are you from" that's classified, Me Too big secret exchange, which can be read as Rey making light of her life in hiding, or that she genuinely might not have all the information about her history given how reticent VIII is to talk about it. Bringing BB-8 home, however, causes the tension of the day to finally snap. VIII is angry that Rey brought an unfamiliar droid straight to them, citing a previous incident where she made the mistake of trusting the wrong person, and VIII had to kill a lot of people to keep them safe. Rey defends herself, citing how helpless BB-8 was, that one's strength is an obligation to help. When VIII continues to berate her for not being careful enough, Rey snaps. "It's better than shutting everything out. All you care about is hiding. You never talk about Mother except to tell me why we need to stay here, like she's just an excuse. I'd rather risk being found again than turn into you." These words hit VIII like a physical blow, and after a moment of heavy silence, where regret starts to creep into Rey's expression, VIII quietly remarks that Rey can find the droid's owner tomorrow, and slinks away to her room. So there's a lot going on here already. Rey isn't alone on Jakku, but has a parental figure with a mysteriously absent mother, and for whatever reason, that missing mother is the cause of their presence on this miserable little snowball. Rey is aware of her Force sensitivity and is actively training it under the guidance of VIII, who has a lightsaber and knows how to use it, but there's no hint towards either of them being Jedi nor Sith, as even though Rey mentions a code that favors strength, it's in the context of helping those weaker than you. Swipe transition. The scene of Poe getting tortured by Ren is largely unchanged, save for a bit where Poe taunts him by saying he's a disgrace to the name Organa, which prompts Ren to forego any sense of diplomacy and brute forces the existence of BB-8 out of his mind. The real change here is when we return to Finn and find him attending a funeral for those lost in the tonal assault, including his squadmate. He stands apart from the remaining two, who seem to carry some animosity towards him now, perhaps projecting their own grief and anger onto him even though there was nothing he could have done. This scene would give us more insight into the spiritual aspect of the First Order. The process is very ritualized with flickering candles and smoking censers, and an individual in subdued grey robes called Archon Sirach chanting before the bodies are cremated in the green fire of a morbid, elaborate forge. See, they don't simply burn the bodies, but compress the ashes into beads, handed out to those closest to the dead, the Archon speaking as this happens. "For some of you, these deaths are the first. For others, this is just another reminder of our purpose. The Dark Mother knows your pain, she feels your loss, and the blood you spill for her. She cries out for justice, for you know who is truly at fault for these deaths, has always been at fault for the suffering of our brothers and sisters. Their decadence and elitism brought us here, pushed us to the frontier, forced us to contend with threats they could never face in their deepest nightmares. But we survived. No, we have thrived because of the Mother and her champions. Emperor Palpatine began her great work when he sent Admiral Kast to our aid, and the Republic murdered them both. Emperor Khanlusa tried to make them see reason, tried to extend mercy, and the Republic spurned him. They spurned the Mother's gifts and pushed him and our forebears in the frontier. Emperor Khanlusa continued Admiral Kast's work in bringing her salvation to us all, and the Republic has always resented our survival. They will never see us as worthy, only as savages. So what is your answer, children?" And the gathered soldiers roar back. One voice, one purpose. Finn only murmured it, too preoccupied with the red bead in his hand, hanging on a cord. A tall Chiss woman with short hair and a black plain uniform comes to stand beside him, her posture stiff, her hands held loosely behind her back. This is Phasma, without her armor on. She tells him that his team will understand eventually, and that if they don't, they can be transferred. He insists he wants to get through to them, and Phasma understands, but reminds him that their survival in the field depends on their trust for one another. Outside the memorial hall, Finn is accosted by Darth Ruin, who bluntly informs him that a rogue, untrained adept will not be tolerated. Once their mission on Jakku has concluded, he will be removed from the Stormtrooper Corps and sent to Ilum for formal training in the ways of the Sith. At Finn's obvious discomfort, Ruin coolly remarks that if he had been trained from the beginning, his friend would still be alive. But now that their guest has been broken, it's only a matter of time before they leave this graveyard, and Finn can ensure such a thing never happens again. Finn takes a moment in a bathroom to panic and wash his face, clearly uneasy at the prospect despite the prestige such a position would surely bring. He spots Phasma in the hall outside and runs to her, informing her of what just happened. Any close familiarity falls away. She knows what's going to happen, what has to happen now, and there is nothing she can do about it. She obviously isn't happy about it, despite telling him that this is an honor, and shuts down any attempt to suggest he can get out of it somehow. Orders are orders, and she tells Finn as much, wistfully remarking about what a fine captain he would have made. But this is the law. All Force-sensitive individuals must receive formal training on Ilum. Left to his own devices, Finn only falls deeper into anxiety until he makes a split-second decision to run, and this is where he rescues Poe. In this version, he's honest with Poe about needing someone who can fly, admitting he doesn't want to be Sith because everyone can feel it. Something happens to the people who go to Ilum, and he doesn't care how big an honor it is, he is terrified to find out what that is. The rescue goes almost exactly the same way, except for Finn's reaction to blasting his fellow soldiers, where he is clearly conflicted and tries to avoid outright killing them when he can. They crash, Finn wakes up alone with Poe's jacket, and he slowly makes his way through the snowy night until he reaches a cluster of plateaus. He's attacked by an animal in the canyon and fends it off with a knife, stumbling away from the fight, clearly feeling the effects of a venom, until he sees a structure embedded in the canyon walls and thumps against the door. This door just so happens to be the home of Rey, VIII, and Aerox, and Finn collapses into their home right after seeing BB-8. Rey and VIII take care of Finn's injuries, briefly tying him up because they saw the white ink on the base of his neck denoting his ID as a stormtrooper and pertinent medical details. And yes, it does use the numerical code he has in the movie, but his government name in the First Order is still Finn Dorn. VIII questions him because what in the goddamn hell is the First Order doing on Jakku, and BB-8 demands to know why he has Poe's jacket. Feeling trapped and defeated, Finn tells them everything from the attack on Tarnal to now, finishing his story with the insistence that he doesn't want to be Sith. During this interrogation, VIII makes a cryptic remark that she knows more about the Sith than Finn does. Regardless, Finn doesn't want to hurt people, and he admits that that sounds ridiculous as a soldier, but when he lost his parents, the First Order took him in, gave him a home, and he was happy to defend it because all he saw around him as a child was war and chaos. But there's something rotting at the heart of it all, something he's tried to ignore for the longest time and just can't anymore. Satisfied, VIII releases Finn, and BB-8 receives an emergency signal from Poe. Rey implores VIII to help him, and at this point VIII throws her hands in the air, marching out to do just that, despite her obvious irritation, because this situation is rapidly getting out of her ability to control anyway. While she and BB-8 are away, Rey talks to Finn, showing great curiosity about the galaxy and divulging that she and her mothers used to travel often in their ship, the Truthseeker. Finn correctly deduces that they're hiding, and upon asking her about that, Rey confesses that she doesn't remember the why or the what, just that Sulia said something dangerous was after them and she left to draw it away. She was supposed to come back when it was safe, and it's been 10 years. Poe is brought back alive, albeit with a badly injured leg, and he's happy to see Finn survive their impromptu escape. Leaving the boys at home, VIII declares that because the First Order will be looking for them, they need to leave, and she tells Rey to get the speeders ready while Aerox packs the ship. It hits Rey all at once that VIII means they are leaving. All of them. They're leaving Jakku. They head to Nima Outpost and actually go inside the town this time to buy supplies for the ship, but the First Order is already patrolling, and it's only a matter of time before Tito points Rey out to them as the one who took the BB-8 unit from him. This results in a speeder chase back to the canyons, where VIII signals for them to split, forcing their pursuers to do the same. Naturally, the chase goes poorly for the First Order, but the standout moment here would be Rey using a small jolt of Force lightning to cause a crash. I'd want to thread the line between what we've understood thus far to be dark side inclinations and the light, a balance in the Force, as it were. Returning to the old smuggler's den, everyone gets loaded up onto the Truthseeker and TIE fighters are deployed to chase them down. VIII pilots while Rey and Finn man the turrets, managing to pick off their pursuers by weaving through the ship graveyard and finally escaping the planet. Quick note, as before they finished loading onto the ship, Rey would have grabbed a bunch of personal items from her room, including Force-related educational texts, lightsaber tools, and a holocron, a purple, gold-framed octahedron. This is Sulia's holocron that she left for Rey to one day open when she was ready. What does that mean? You'll find out. The main points are that Rey still has some kind of mystery going on about her family history, she already knows she's Force-sensitive and has a guardian who has been training her, though her connection with the Force seems troubled somehow. Finn is much more conflicted about defecting, as he was a loyal soldier and believer in the First Order until his squadmate dying rattled him and he couldn't suppress his Force sensitivity anymore. Poe is with them from the start, rather than events playing out in such a way that he and Rey only meet each other at the end of the second film in the trilogy. What in the goddamn was that about? And overall, there's meant to be a sense that the First Order, while similar to the Empire, is a totally different beast akin to Crusaders burning away the impure. This isn't just another authoritarian empire. There is a higher power driving them, and it is hungry. After the escape, the scene would shift to Ruin aboard the Finalizer in his personal chambers, meditating before the melted visage of Darth Vader's helmet. But instead of revering his grandfather, Ruin seethes at Vader's weakness, resenting him for allowing sentiment to sway him from his path. We see brief flashes of Ruin when he was still called Ben, of a temple in flames, of him cutting through fellow Jedi acolytes and facing his Uncle Luke, eyes black save for a silvery pinprick of light. Ruin shudders from the recollection, clearly unsettled, and hisses that he will be stronger than Vader, saying, "The Force shall free me." He's informed of the failure on Jakku, but doesn't throw a tantrum, more concerned with the confirmation that the mystery Cathar and human girl were obviously Force adepts, and he brings this to a holocall with Emperor Snoke Kolost, interrupting a conversation with Commander Armitage Hux. Their relationship is similarly disdainful, but he lets Hux finish, and we learn that the First Order is preparing to unleash something on the New Republic called Savage Dawn. Once Hux has left the conversation, Ruin cryptically informs Snoke that he believes an old enemy may have resurfaced. Meanwhile, Team Truthseeker is in hyperspace, and I'd make a point that space travel isn't shown as instantaneous, but still takes time, and isn't just the speed that is most convenient for the plot. So before they arrive at Takodana, there's some interaction between the characters allowing them to grow and connect. Finn investigates the ship and finds a locked door, only to jump out of his skin when Vace lowers herself out of a maintenance hatch right next to him, flatly confirming the locked door was her and Sulia's room. He's clearly intimidated by her, so makes an excuse to go and check on Poe in the medbay, and they talk about the escape, having a much easier rapport now that they aren't at risk of death. When Vace is asked where they're headed, she reveals that they are headed to Takodana to talk to an old friend of her wife. Poe is insistent on heading straight to the Coalition because the Republic is in danger, but Vace returns that it's been in danger for years from infighting, greed, and corruption. They need to repair the ship first, and she doesn't know or trust the Coalition yet, so they're going to someone she does. Besides, they only have enough fuel to reach Takodana, and it'll take a few days to get there. Finn tries to give the jacket back to Poe, but as in canon, Poe tells him to keep it, adding that it looks good on him, which flusters Finn. There's some bonding between Finn and Vace via ship maintenance and talking over weapons in the workshop when he can't sleep. He asks her why she helped them, and she admits that honor demands that you help people in need, and she's done a terrible job of that. She offers to teach him a Cathar card game called Zont to calm his mind, and they head off to the ship's galley. When Rey wakes up in the bunk room later, it's shown that Vace sleeps with a frown and a mouth guard, her jaw flexing as a chronic teeth grinder, and if you've ever had the displeasure of hearing the sound it makes when someone grinds their teeth while unconscious, you'll appreciate Vace's efforts to mitigate that. Rey spends most of her time in Sulia's old study, which gives the impression of someone who spent a lifetime exploring all manner of cultures and unearthing history. In particular, Rey remembers helping her mother delicately clean an artifact, and Sulia is shown to be human, with similar features to her. When they finally reach Takodana, they meet with Maz, who in this version is a Gendai, because what is the point of having so many species in a setting already if you don't use them? It's clear there's friendly history between Maz and Vace, and she quickly sorts out everything they need for the ship. She also casually indicates that Vace will have her hands full with training Finn, tacitly revealing herself to be familiar with the Force even if she carries no lightsaber. She asks to speak with Vace alone, and outside, Finn nervously asks Rey what training with Vace is like, to which she reassures him, seemingly excited to see what he can do. The conversation between Vace and Maz turns dark and serious once it's just them, Maz referencing the last time Vace's family was here, and what a horrible mess that was. She cryptically asks Vace if that was really the best solution, and Vace returns that we thought it would protect her, clearly referring to Rey and deeply conflicted about whatever that was. Maz warns that Rey's senses will only sharpen now that she's off Jakku, and it's only a matter of time before she realizes that something is wrong. Vace needs to tell her before that happens, which Vace acknowledges, but will she? Take a guess. Instead of arriving on Takodana because of some goddamn snitches, we cut back to Ruin addressing his knights. Here, they would be fully trained Force adepts rather than ambiguously dark-sided mercenaries, and they would be more distinct as characters. Long story short, they act under Ruin's direct orders, and he orders them to support the deployment of Savage Dawn, while he heads off to Naboo. We're gonna start moving quickly now, because if I don't, this video will be 3 hours long. I am not ready for that yet, and this is the point where we really start to diverge from The Force Awakens. Now that the team is no longer on a world weak in the Force, Rey starts to have scary premonitions and contorted flashbacks about a horrific darkness swallowing her whole, and the blurry figure of Snoke attacking a family in a rainstorm, steadily revealing that this is how Vace lost her limbs and is the instigating incident behind their exile on Jakku. Rey doesn't remember being hurt from this event, but she does remember Sulia standing over her as if trying to heal her with the Force, looking tearful and apologizing to her. Vace begins teaching Finn in one-to-one sessions, showing him how to meditate, how to exert his will through the Force, and revealing to him the exact manner in which she was taught, using the words Ashla, Bogan, and Bendu to refer to the light, the dark, and the in-between, rejecting the extremes of both Jedi and Sith. She also confirms and challenges the propaganda of the First Order. During a group meal, it's commented on that Finn is strong in the Force, and that while Sulia and Vace were equals in physical combat, Sulia was far more proficient in her use of the Force through complex techniques and rituals. She was more of a sorcerer. When Rey brushes off Poe's curiosity by saying that she is nothing special and just strong enough to use the Force when she needs it, Vace does not reassure her otherwise, looking quietly uncomfortable. There's a conversation between just Finn and Poe when they get a drink later that reveals more about what the First Order tells its people versus what Poe is aware of, painting a clearer picture of the horrors they had to survive in the unknown regions, and how genuinely good it feels to be part of the First Order when your enemies are a sentient living contagion, soul-sucking reptilian zealots, and violent predatory slavers. There's hints during this conversation about Phasma having doubts in their mission, but it largely revolves around Finn and Poe getting to know each other better. Before they leave Takodana, Vace takes Finn and Rey to select crystals for their lightsabers, under the reasoning that things are only going to get more dangerous going forward and they will need these weapons. Maz has a collection of suitable components in her vault, and they pick 4 each, 2 pairs to fit a versatile hilt like the one Vace carries. It's worth noting that one of the crystals picked by Rey is the same type Sulia used, which leads to a vulnerable moment between her and Vace hugging and admitting how much they both miss Sulia. When Finn and Rey assemble their lightsabers, it's done out in the wilderness where the Force is at its most balanced, with them meditating while Vace recites a code. From blood there is honor. From honor there is wisdom. From wisdom there is unity. From unity there is strength. In our strength there is a future, balanced and unbroken. Rey's lightsaber color is silver and ignites with a faint crackle of electricity, while Finn's is cyan and sounds like hot metal being quenched in ice water. Rey assembles hers here on Takodana, while Finn assembles his later on Dakar. For the real lore nerds in the audience, Rey has Durant Fire and Furkran crystals to reinforce her affinity for lightning, and Finn has Lordian gemstones and Recursion glass, lending to his protective and empathetic nature in the Force. Vace's primary, secondary, and tertiary crystals are Fond, Sapith, and Sigil. We briefly cut to see that the Knights of Ruin are on Hosnian, showcasing the disparity between those living on the surface and those below, and the disdain the Knights hold for the New Republic's hypocrisy. Team Truthseeker ships off to the Ilenium system, and on the way there, Poe asks for Rey's help customizing some new blasters in the workshop. He's having trouble because all the tools seem to be designed for left-handed use, and they talk a little while she applies the customizations for him. Rey and her mother Sulia are both left-handed. If you're starting to put the pieces together, I am so proud of you. They connect over losing their mothers at a young age, and Poe shows her his mother's platinum wedding band that he wears around his neck, saying it'll go to someone special someday. Rey is a little overwhelmed by the conversation, and Poe apologizes, changing to another topic to keep her mind off things. There is a brief interaction between Aerox and BB-8, with the latter asking the former if he is a war droid. Aerox answers that his duty is to serve and protect the Vardanox family, and he is fully equipped to wage war should it be necessary. BB-8 observes that Aerox's design doesn't show up in any manufacturer catalog, asking if he is a custom creation, and Aerox answers that that's classified, causing BB-8 to roll back with indignation. Finn helps Vace set up a hydroponic shelf in the hangar bay and accepts Poe's offer to talk about his feelings if he needs to, but he spends most of the journey just trying to make himself useful. When they're close to their destination, Poe unintentionally upsets Vace by calling her and Rey Jedi, insisting that's what they are if they're going to fight the First Order and their Sith, and that hearing the Jedi are back will be a shot in the arm for people, but Vace refuses to accept the label. They are going to fight the First Order, but there's clear animosity shown towards being considered Jedi, and they both display an understanding of Sith and Jedi history, constantly throwing the galaxy into turmoil. Moving on. Team Truthseeker lands on Dakar, where the Coalition has a town called Haven, a fortified location where refugees running from the First Order can resettle and support the Coalition's efforts. The town itself is built on top of a forested mesa, with the IFC's headquarters built underneath. Poe brings them down to meet with General Leia, finally handing over the data chip and introducing his new friends. Finn is noticeably scared to introduce himself, but he does so honestly, and Leia takes his hands, calling him a brave man for running away from the First Order and thanking him for rescuing Poe. Finn affirms that he's here to fight for a better way forward. There's obvious tension when Leia turns her focus on Vace, but she welcomes them all regardless and leaves Poe to get them familiarized while she handles another matter. We learn through a tour from Poe that Leia founded Haven 10 years ago with help from friends she still had in the Republic. They're almost fully self-sufficient now. She built this place because she knew that she would need a base of operations separate from the Republic if the Empire ever came back, no matter what form that took, and when the Republic closed its doors to refugees, she was the one who took them in. They're brought back to Leia and given a mission to head to Naboo after the Coalition received a troubling report from Agent Amilyn Holdo. Yes, I'm rescuing the parts I liked from The Last Jedi and discarding the rest. Rose will make an appearance down the line. The team is equipped with comlinks, datapads, and a modified transmission board for the ship to let them communicate securely with the Coalition and head off to Naboo. There's a brief moment of understanding between Rey and Vace on the bridge as Rey expresses a need to help others, even if their main goal is to find out what happened to Sulia, and Vace agrees, confessing that she had forgotten what the point of having strength was. She put sheltering Rey above letting her grow. Strength for the sake of it, discipline without application, honor without means to test it, unity to a group of two. She allowed weakness into her heart because of fear, and Rey suffered for it. Rey accepts her words and reassures her mama that now they have a chance to do something worthwhile with their strength, and so will Finn. They arrive in the city of Theed on Naboo and leave Aerox to guard the ship, meeting Amilyn Holdo outside the spaceport. She still has her violet hair, because that was just a really bizarre thing to get hung up on, but she wears a dark blue jumpsuit with a grey utility vest and sandals, her belt holding a variety of tools and a blaster pistol. This version of Holdo is like if your hippie art professor and Miss Frizzle had a child with Jack Bauer, an outwardly friendly, compassionate, and very intelligent woman who has seen far too much to ever sit still when there's fighting to be done. Poe's relationship with her is far more professional and positive here, as they've clearly worked together before. Amilyn explains that political unrest has gripped the Republic in light of damning information released on the HoloNet, sparking riots and talks of secession. So, no one is really paying attention to the reports of people going missing around Chorus, nor the fact that there are soldiers using stealth field generators creeping around the woods. Investigating Chorus reveals that some creepy robed figures are paying criminals to kidnap people and bring them to a place called Soren's Fall, an excavation site that turns out to be an old temple connected to Emperor Palpatine. Naboo was his homeworld after all, it makes sense that he would have things hidden away here. Infiltrating the site, Poe and Amilyn stay outside to sabotage the First Order's operations, as they're using droids to retrieve artifacts from within the temple. Why? Because the vibes are rancid and non-Force users would have a terrible time in there, so it's up to Finn, Vace, and Rey to look inside. Rey is briefly distracted by the bust of an alien species that is humanoid in appearance, but has pointed ears and noticeable ridges, tendrils, and facial spurs, with ornate geometric jewelry affixed to the nose and cheekbones. I wonder what that's about. Anyway, deeper inside the temple, they find the abducted people reduced to ashen husks in front of a large, spooky door, clearly sacrificed as part of some ritual. Beyond the door is a vault filled with valuable relics stored away by Palpatine at the height of his power, and this is where the first fight with Ruin is had, because he's down here talking to another Sith called Lord Ralveg. As soon as the fight starts, Vace decouples her lightsaber and throws one of the hilts to Finn so that he can defend himself, facing off against Lord Ralveg while she and Rey attack Ruin together. The duel is difficult, but Finn eventually gains the upper hand and forces Ralveg to his knees, telling him to surrender and trying to convince him that this war against the Republic was built on a lie. But while Ralveg almost looks like he agrees with Finn, he's stopped by darkness taking over his eyes until only a pinprick of silvery light remains. The visuals would distort and twist around him like the air is shivering, and the voice that comes out of Ralveg would only make that worse.
You cannot take them from me.
Ralveg then impales himself on his own lightsaber, and the weight lifts. Despite being outnumbered, Ruin would prove himself a deadly combatant, and the fight is ended by Finn getting the idea to bring the temple crashing down on top of him. This does allow them to escape, and they return to Theed believing that Ruin is dealt with, but they are not that lucky. Ruin drags himself out of the temple and returns to the Finalizer, ordering the bombardment of Theed and forcing the team into a mad dash to their ship. During the chaos, they pass by people looking for safe passage at the spaceport, and Rey convinces Vace to let them take who they can, resulting in a grueling moment where Amilyn helps decide who gets to be saved, because the Truth Seeker can only hold so many people. With those they can rescue, Vace flies them out of there, leaving Ruin to intensify the bombardment of Naboo in their absence as he looks down at a strange, sinister amulet in his palm. We dramatically swipe transition to Hux and Captain Phasma observing the Republic capital world of Hosnian from the bridge of his Star Destroyer. The First Order has completed their blockade of the planet, and Hux opens a channel directly to the Senate, relaying his broadcast through the HoloNet so that every Republic world will see what is about to happen. Ah, the New Republic in action. A gathering of hypocritical and self-serving bureaucrats hungry for a return to a time when they could grow apathetic to the needs of their citizenry. You murdered our forebears, drove us into the dark unknown, but unlike you, we evolved, we adapted, we learned from our mistakes and grew stronger for it. Where you leave the vulnerable and destitute to flounder on their own because of the cost, we lift them up. Where you allow vices to grow out of control and even dare to profit from them, we do not tolerate such pointless self-destruction. To encourage such is to shirk responsibility, to leave your people without purpose, without voice, constantly chasing after money, enough to eat, enough for shelter, enough to live. Our people are one. United in purpose, in voice, in the sheltering void of our great Dark Mother. And while he speaks, a thick green vapor begins to flood the Senate chambers, causing an immediate panic as those hit first begin to choke and convulse. So bear witness to the last days of the Republic. Bear witness as we finish what our forefathers started. Bear witness to the savage dawn. Now, what has the First Order done here? They've unleashed a variant of the Rakghoul virus. For those of you who don't know, Rakghouls are basically space werewolves, mindless, ravenous monsters that can turn you into one of them with a single bite or scratch. I find this more horrifying than wasting Ilum by turning it into Death Star 2 Electric Boogaloo and dusting 5 worlds we have no connection to. Returning to D'Qar, the Truth Crew are informed about what happened to Hosnian, and that Ruin nuked several of Naboo's cities off the map after they left, which horrifies Amilyn. At the very least, there's a small, sweet moment at their return when Leia hugs Amilyn in relief, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear and remarking that she was always good at escapes. Make of that what you will. Because Vace recognizes the Rakghoul virus in action and knows some of the history behind it, Leia tasks them with seeking out whatever countermeasures the First Order is using to protect its soldiers from the virus. When Poe asks about the data chip and if it had any information about the Savage Dawn project, Leia denies this, revealing that it showed them proof of the First Order funding pirate attacks on the Republic. It isn't a complete waste, however, as it also carried a wealth of battle plans and ship movements that will help the Republic defend itself now that the First Order is openly attacking them. Before they can leave, Leia speaks to Vace privately as one unorthodox practitioner of the Force to another, wherein Leia warns Vace to be careful because they will almost certainly run into Ruin again, and this is where it's confirmed that Ruin is Ben Organa, her son. Vace is respectful and gentle when she asks Leia if they want her to bring him back to her, but she refuses to ask that of anyone, only that they learn everything they can about these new Sith. Surely you've felt it. That distant, tenebrous thing at the edge of perception. Once again, the hungry, dark thing behind the First Order is referenced, Vace through her fateful encounter with Snoke, and Leia through her son's fall to the dark side. She blames herself for not realizing what was coming until it was too late, and when Vace tells her it isn't her fault, Leia asks if she would be so kind to herself in the same position. No. We are often crueler to ourselves than we would ever be to others. But I can be kind to you. Before they leave, Vace has Finn construct his lightsaber and has him meditate before doing so that he can filter his emotions into the blade without tipping too far in either direction. The point, as Vace was taught, isn't to channel only your negative or positive feelings, but to channel all of yourself and create a true extension of one's being. They spar afterwards, with Vace gently but firmly correcting his form, and at the end, when he thanks her for taking him under her wing, Vace affirms that he deserves to live, and that he is not his people's atrocities. Now, finer details fall off at this point, as that's as far as my final draft version of events got, but as I mentioned before, I made sure to plan this all out in full so I could foreshadow things and build up to character moments and plot developments. Imagine doing that for a multi-part project in an IP worth billions. Imagine! From here, Team Truthseeker would head to Taris. It was the most likely place for the First Order's viral source that Vace could think of. On the way there, we cut to the chaos unfolding on Hosnian, a scene straight out of a zombie apocalypse as people turn into monsters and chase down the uninfected with ravenous vigor. But we would also see that the First Order marches among the chaos, protected by scent blockers and the presence of collared rat ghouls who have been heavily experimented on. These stand upright, their hands have been amputated, and extensive cybernetics protrude from their skulls. They seem to act like overlords, directing the lesser rat ghouls according to the commands of their Sith handlers. The ripples in the Force created by this concentrated deluge of fear and death brings us back to Finn, who vomits after being disturbed from sleep. This leads to Rey and Vace helping him meditate, holding hands to keep each other anchored, and they're joined by Poe and Amilyn because even though they aren't Force sensitive, the knowledge of what's happening is more than enough to disturb their sleep as well. There'd be a little bonding moment between Rey and Amilyn in the workshop later, where we learn that Amilyn is ambidextrous, and she comments that left-handedness is uncommon in both humans and Cathar. We learn from this interaction that Sulia is responsible for the utility-focused design of the lightsabers they use, but Rey doesn't have an answer when Amilyn asks her where Sulia learned this. She can't remember. Finally, we'd also see another training moment between Vace and Finn to reinforce his preference for defensive combat and his empathic abilities, which reveals that he has the Force ability of psychometry. This means he can pick up on emotions and memories tied to objects or places. Now, because it's been thousands of years since Darth Malak blasted it to hell, the planet-wide city of Taris has been rebuilt, though it has far fewer levels, and there are a lot of open circles where wilderness reigns unchecked and the ruins of what came before just barely peek through. These are hunting reserves where people come from far and wide to prove themselves against the deadly, mutagenic nature of Taris' fabled Undercity. See, below the surface, there's an extensive, dangerous, and labyrinthine network of natural tunnels, ancient city layers, cave systems, and shipwreckage, which all combines into a damp, subterranean, bioluminescent jungle full of countless dangers. They try to find information in the city archives, but there's shockingly little about rat ghouls, and after asking one too many questions, the group is suspiciously escorted out, forcing them to look elsewhere. Unfortunately, Darth Ruin and Captain Phasma arrive on Taris without any hostilities because it turns out the government already had a quiet agreement with the First Order regarding research expeditions into the Undercity, and they were already planning to secede from the New Republic once the war started. Poe and Finn go to the Taresian Hunters League and speak to Huntmaster Bozak, an old Trandoshan who tells them that rat ghouls are a horror story to keep young reckless hunters from delving too deep, though he adds that if there are rat ghouls in the Undercity, they're so far down that it would be suicide to go after them. Amilyn gets them into contact with an information broker, and through working with him, the gang learns more about the First Order's operations on Taris, from capturing people in the lower city to test viral strains on, and mutilating innocent people, to the fact that this all started 5 years ago, something that infuriates Poe. During this time, Vace continually senses something on the planet, saying that it's far below the surface, and whatever it is terrified, and that the only reason she can sense it is because it has some kind of connection to the hungering darkness. While they're busy attacking the First Order test sites, we see Ruin meet with a room of dissident politicians who are very much against aligning with the First Order, and with perfect calm, Ruin kills them in a Force ritual that causes the sinister amulet he took from Naboo to start glowing with a unhealthy inner light. Surely this isn't a tool that will help him later. Eventually, Team Truthseeker discovers that the so-called Mirror Site 1, named after the Sith Lord Karnus Mirror who created the rat ghouls forever ago, is deep within the Undercity, and they manage to convince Huntmaster Bozak to guide them, because Trandoshans might be known best as brutal slavers. He came to Taris to hunt and live well, something the First Order threatens. It takes time to reach this last site, and things get worse above ground as they descend. The people of Taris are divided about the First Order, and this leads to riots and crackdowns. When they finally reach their destination, Rey and Finn can feel the same thing as Vace, a bundled collection of terrified entities held within the facility, and there's only one reason the three of them would sense that so clearly. The individuals being held are also Force-sensitive. If you've played Star Wars The Old Republic and you remember a very specific quest on the Imperial side of Taris regarding rat ghouls and a Jedi holocron, you know where this is going. They infiltrate the site thanks to Amelin slicing, and once she has access to their systems, she reveals the gruesome process by which the First Order turns a special breed of rat ghouls into swarm masters. They even find one in the middle of this process, interrupting a surgery in the labs. It's out cold and restrained, muzzled, with multiple thin rods sticking out the back of its open skull. It has big dark eyes and catfish-like barbels on its face, with sensory pits running along the midline of its body. It's revealed to us that these are called neck ghouls, a highly evolved offshoot that isn't contagious, reproduces naturally, is Force-sensitive, and also sapient. They were living in the depths of the Undercity all this time until the First Order discovered their existence and began raiding their settlements with the help of the Sith. Turning them into swarm masters means lobotomizing them and using them like amplifiers for the handler's will. That's why Vace could sense them first. She could feel the hungering void being forced onto their minds through this procedure, through the domination under their Sith commanders. Naturally, being our heroes, the team decides to find the remaining neck ghouls rather than destroy the place and run. Talking to the captives confirms that they are indeed sapient, and all they want to do is get away from this place and disappear again. They never wanted to be found. They know even if they can't transform people, no one will care. All the greater galaxy will see are monsters. It's worth noting that Vace looks unsettled about this sentiment. The team, of course, sets them free. Returning to the surface, Rey has a nightmare about Snoke, Ruin, and the hungering void behind them, something Vace cannot explain to her because she doesn't know what it is either. The information broker gives them the location of the last Muir site, a pharmaceutical facility in Sector 8, the Taresian government's official biomedical research and development hub. This final mission requires the team to split apart, bringing BB-8 and Aerox with them this time to help carry it out. Amelin slices into the facility systems to cause distractions and unlock doors for the others, and Aerox causes more direct distractions in the form of waging war on the outside of the facility, showcasing exactly what the otherwise dry and devoted droid is capable of when given a reason. Finn uses his familiarity with First Order protocol to trick the workers of the facility into evacuating before things get worse, reinforcing that he cares what happens to the people they're fighting. As they descend to the sublevels, they go over what the plan of action is once they're down there. Poe, Finn, Amelin, and BB-8 will go to the vaccine testing labs and storage to grab what they can. Vace and Rey will split to sabotage the twin generators that run this place and bring it down after them. Finn's team makes it to their target, but they have to contend with entrenched troopers being led by Captain Phasma, pushing them back until they're defending the entrance to the vaccine vault. When all the stormtroopers are down, Phasma is the one who yells traitor and engages Finn in melee, her armor capable of taking direct blaster fire. She proves to be the superior combatant, having more experience than him, but when she knocks him to the ground and lifts her weapon, she hesitates. Poe manages to shoot the weapon out of her hands and Phasma is subdued. Finn gets to talk to her, telling her that she taught him better than this, expressing disappointment and grief that she would stand by what the First Order unleashed on Hosnian, demanding to know where the honor was in that. He doesn't seem to get through to her at first, but when they have trouble unlocking the vault, Phasma quietly gives them the door code before freeing herself and escaping. Instead of chasing after her, the team focuses instead on grabbing cases of the vaccine. Meanwhile, Rey plants a charge on the generator she's supposed to hit, only to be confronted by Ruin. She immediately calls out to Vace through the Force, but has to defend herself until Vace can reach her, which she does an admirable job of if not for Ruin taunting her about the real reason her mother left, and how her kind could never just accept their fate. He manages to catch her off guard and throws her into a wall, stunning her just long enough to pull out the amulet. I may not have the same finesse as your mother, but with enough power you can tear apart any ritual, any curse. Let me show you the truth." With that, he begins chanting, and dark energy begins to rise from Rey's body like smoke. She cries out in pain, clutching her head, writhing, and then her skin begins to crack, peeling off of her like burnt paper. The energy thickens, clouding her body, but through it we see hints of bright crimson skin, black hair instead of brown, a sharpening of the nails and canines, the pointing of ears, ridges and cartilaginous spurs along the jawline and brows. And through it all, Rey is struck by flashbacks, memories that shift and violently correct, the human version of Sulia giving way to one with red skin, black hair and orange eyes, bright, clean orange eyes like a sunset. The smoke falls away, and Rey is revealed in full, looking up with eyes the color of gleaming gold. She is Sith. Red Sith, the original Sith, not a bastardized descendant like Ruin, and her own mother performed a ritual not just to hide this from her, but to suppress both her memories and her connection to the Force, because its strength resists alerting people like Snoke to their existence. That is why they lived on the Truth Seeker, because Rey was too young to control her connection, so they left the homeworld. And when a chance encounter with Snoke left Vace almost dead, and the Red Sith's continued survival all too obvious, Sulia hid them on Jakku, and fled to lead Snoke away. While she's dazed, Rey can't protect herself from Ruin's cruel kicks and taunts. But she doesn't need to, as Vace finally enters the room, and we get to see what it looks like when you really piss her off. She attacks in the throes of Force fury, dual-wielding her blades in reverse grip, snarling like an animal as she immediately puts Ruin on the back foot. In this moment, Vace is a flurry of motion and murderous intent, coming very close to outright killing Ruin multiple times and leaving him badly injured. Knowing he cannot best Vace in this state, Ruin relies on words instead, asking how long Vace was going to hide this from Rey if the truth would ever have come out. "How does it feel to betray your own family?" There is a brief moment where Rey, stricken, horrified, heartbroken, locks eyes with Vace, and all the fire and fury is snuffed out in an instant. In that terrible, frozen moment, Vace is a picture of grief, regret, and deep, deep shame. And those few seconds of shattered focus is all Ruin needs to run his blade through her chest. Rey screams and attacks him with a sudden explosion of yellow lightning, throwing him across the room and setting his robes alight. Already badly injured, Ruin drops smoke grenades and uses them to escape the room. He's already done what he intended to do. Vace is still and silent, and Rey is in denial at first, trying to rouse Vace as best she can, telling her she can't leave. "They haven't found Sulia yet. You promised we would find her together. Why did you hide this from me? Why didn't you tell me?" But there's nothing she can do now, other than pick up the empty body of her mama and find her friends, so they can leave this place. Obviously, there's a bit of confusion when they see her carrying Vace, but it's cleared up quickly, and they manage to escape from Taris, deeply shaken, but with a vaccine against the Rakghoul virus in hand. The closing moments would entail Rey trying to process what just happened, sitting with Vace's body in the medbay, and eventually sitting in Sulia's study, where she discovers that the right time to open her mother's holocron was when she was herself again. She almost looks like she's going to smash the holocron at this realization, but she sits down and meditates with it instead, learning where her people live now, and that they renamed themselves the Azoran, a Sith word related to rebirth and renewal. Sulia was a member of the Gen Sarai, an order of scholarly warriors who scour the galaxy for knowledge and wisdom to better their understanding of the Force and help keep the balance within their own people. Rey explains all this to her friends after a couple of days, including that Sulia was the one who suppressed her memories in connection to the Force, and insisting that she needs to find her. She needs answers. To this, Amilyn, Finn, and Poe all agree that they will help her do this, affirming that she's not alone, and Rey finally smiles a little, joining them for a meal. As stated before, these parts will be a lot shorter because I just have the spark notes of what happens in these episodes, but at least I had a through line in mind. I will never stop being bitter. Anyway, following the lead on Sulia, the Truth Crew are hounded by Darth Ruin and his knights as war engulfs the galaxy around them, with cuts to Captain Phasma to insinuate doubt and disloyalty are brewing. After the mission in Bogano turns out to be a wash, Leia recalls them for an important mission to Bel Savis, where a rebellion is slowly falling to the First Order. The Truth Crew leaves, and Rey searches Sulia's holocron for further insights as to her whereabouts. Through a series of gruesome struggles, they help the rebellion defeat the First Order on Bel Savis, killing a Knight of Ruin in the process. Finn and Phasma interact throughout this, sowing further seeds of doubt in her when he defeats her in single combat, but lets her live, showing his progress and the belief he still holds in his old mentor. Rose Tico joins them from the Bel Savis rebellion to help fight the First Order elsewhere, and Rey realizes that Sulia's perfect place to hide is Korriban. The Truth Crew head over there, and Korriban is a difficult place to be on all fronts. They overcome dark trials and tribulations, and eventually discover Sulia alive. She reveals that she has the axe of King Adas, a symbol of a united Sith led to victory against tyranny. She is, of course, devastated to learn that Vace died fighting Snoke's attack dog, but is deeply relieved to be reunited with Rey. They barely escape from the First Order, arriving on the planet, and flee to the new Sith home system, presenting the axe to the High Council and everything they know about the First Order. The Azoran are, of course, reluctant to risk repeating history, but are eventually convinced, agreeing to reveal themselves and mobilize their forces with the Coalition. Unfortunately, the crew was followed. The First Order attacks, and the crew holds the line with the Azoran military until the Coalition and allies arrive to drive the First Order back. Ruin and Rey duel again, and she almost kills him if not for a knight interrupting. Rey is blinded and almost killed, causing Sulia to explode with the Force, killing the knight, surrounding troops, and gruesomely hurting Ruin. Ruin escapes with his remaining knights, and the First Order is driven off. Sulia cradles Rey in a state of shock, and the episode ends on a grim note, as we're shown the First Order turning their attention outwards to the rest of the galaxy. We'd see Ruin suffering from Sulia's attack the same way Snoke did long ago. Snoke is angry at the Sith's ability to rebuff his forces and redoubles efforts elsewhere, determined to leave them nowhere to turn but him. And Phasma, on a different, war-torn front, encounters an injured Coalition fighter trying to hide civilians. She stares at him, and his eyes remind her of Finn's, causing her to slowly close the door and ignore that she ever saw them as she moves on, flatly reporting that this sector is clear. Hold on to your tits, gang, we're nearly at the end. This episode would open with the Truth Crew taking out Death Troopers and making their way into an Imperial-era facility where they learn where Snoke came from, but not the source of his dark power. They're frustrated, but end up following a lead about dark gods in the unknown regions. War is tearing through the galaxy, and it's stressing out the crew, but they cut through enemy territory and find an ancient temple complex guarded by shadowy cultists. This is where they discover the existence of Abeloth and are attacked by Ruin. His helmet is ripped off during this fight, revealing facial horror, but he once more escapes. They're recalled by Leia to help an imperiled front, bringing them into contact with rebellious stormtroopers who inform them that Phasma is behind their actions and was discovered. This revelation shakes Finn, and he launches a rescue supported by the others. They recover Phasma, and she breaks ties with the First Order entirely. The rogue stormtroopers break away in droves, but the front is lost, forcing them all to retreat. They all return to Dakar to collate what they found and share intel, taking a moment to breathe and have character interactions. Dakar is then attacked by the First Order in a brutal siege that sees Ruin marching on Haven, dueling Rey until he's confronted by his mother, which nearly gets him killed, forcing him to retreat and leave his knights to fight for him. Dakar is successfully defended when joint Azoran and Republic forces come to their rescue. In the aftermath, a way to take out Abeloth is discovered, and a counterattack is planned on the First Order capital world with help from Phasma. Joint forces travel, and on the way some touching scenes are had, including a sweet kiss between Poe and Finn. Shut your mouth, I don't want to hear it. The attack commences, advancing in stages until Rey, Finn, Sulia, and Leia fight their way to Snoke. Leia faces Ruin, Finn and Sulia keep the remaining knights at bay, and Rey makes it to Snoke. Their battle is fierce and almost lost, but Rey manages to kill him. She uses his connection to Abeloth to collapse the black hole prison she resides within, presumably killing her, though Rey hears a haunting laugh before the presence blinks out of existence. Nonetheless, with the deaths of Ruin, Emperor Kolost, the Knights, and the loss of their connection to Abeloth shaking the remaining Sith to their core, the First Order abandons the battle, disappearing to lick their wounds. They've won. Now, let me just elaborate a little on what everyone's development would have been at this point. Finn would have grown into a fully fledged leader within the Coalition, diplomatic, tactical, and defense-focused. In this entry, the seeds of doubt left with Phasma would have become a rebellion for others like them who saw the good in the First Order but know they have to fight the rot within it. Poe has also grown into a leadership position within the Coalition, an authority figure to their Starfighter Corps, and he is the charismatic voice of their cause, who is set to lead the fight should Leia fall. Rose has also risen the ranks of the Coalition, but she's still a field medic at heart and is most at home on the front line. Holdo continues to work within the intelligence arm of the Coalition, spies, slicers, saboteurs, and all the dirtier work that needs to be done when fighting an enemy like the First Order. Rey has joined the Gensarai and completed her training and is now able to use Force Sight. Her goal is to end Snoke and his false Sith to ensure a place of honor in the galaxy for her people, so they no longer have to hide in shame and fear of their brutal legacy. She has a purpose, and she brings it to bear in stopping Snoke, the last of the bastardized lords of the Sith who began with the Jedi exiles enslaving ancient Korriban. Sulia and Leia have bonded over the years, and in a final push against Snoke at his fortress in the Maw, which is the black hole prison containing Abeloth, Leia faces her son in an emotional duel where Ruin's fears are stripped of all pretense. In the end, he refuses her offer to return, believing that there is no place for someone as tainted as him in a peaceful galaxy. How are you guys doing? Still alive? Had some water recently? Go get a snack or something. I hope this was at least somewhat coherent and enjoyable to listen to. The original Sith are a favourite of mine when it comes to Star Wars aliens, and it's always saddened me that by the time of the movies they are long gone. So what if they weren't? And what if they got a second chance at their own destiny as a people instead of being remembered as what dark Jedi exiles made them? I cannot stress to you how excited I was when I stumbled across the existence of Abeloth while I was trawling Wikipedia one day, a cosmic horror entity that needs to be held in check with a cage of black holes. Oh, I 100% need to fuck with that. There's so much potential. And of course, you'll have picked up on my distinct distaste for the completely black and white approach to the Force where balance means just the light side, actually. And I am fully aware that that's how it's meant to be portrayed because the dark side is a corruptive influence, but goddammit, let me cook! I just think it's neat when things that are typically seen as dark, sinister, or even evil aren't necessarily. And there would be a limit, of course, don't go too deep into the dark side because it isn't a place that welcomes vulnerability. But that isn't because it's intentionally malicious, it just is. It's entropy, rot, decay, the parasite reproducing through suffering, the wolf snatching a screaming lamb from its mother. Things we associate with darkness and evil but simply are. Nature isn't all butterflies and daisies. Do you get what I'm trying to say? I just think it would make for more nuanced and interesting stories in this setting. Whether that turned out to be true or not is another matter. Anyways, thank you for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, don't forget to like, subscribe, and drop a comment down below for the algorithm gods. Special shout out to my supporters over on Patreon who are all very handsome people. If you'd also like to be called a very handsome people, check out the link in the description where you can support me from just £1 a month. All tiers get their name in the credits, while members of the Nerd tier will occasionally get behind-the-scenes previews and video teasers. If you enjoy live streaming, I can be found over on Twitch where I stream every Wednesday at 8 PM British time. For now, don't forget to drink your water, take your medication, be kind to yourselves, and I will see you all next time.